Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we'll be discussing the 81st verse of the Tao Te Ching and how it relates to our recovery. Today we have Brian and Drew. Good to have you guys. One benefit, I made a list of different benefits so I could mention those, some helps for you, is you're able to attend this podcast. Now, we don't have many folks take us up on it because they're afraid they don't know enough. This is not about knowing. This is about how this verse speaks to you in this moment. And if you're listening to this podcast more than once, normally that means that what we discuss speaks to you, and that's all you need. So you're more than welcome if you ever want to attend. We publish the Zoom link in our private Facebook group, which is Tao of Understanding, same logo. Or if you email me at info@buddyc.org, I can send you the link if you're not a Facebook user. So, all right. And you can also come and not say a word and just sit and listen. We've had folks do that, which is fine. Don't feel I will not call on you. I only call on folks when they raise their hand, want me to call on them. I don't push anyone to comment. So if you're so inclined, join us sometime. Okay, we're on the last verse of the Tao Te Ching. Next week, we're going to start the Chuanza, Thomas Merton's version. I believe I have a link. If you go to buddyc.org, go to the bookstore under resources. I believe I have a link there to buy Thomas Merton's book, if that'll help you. Or just go to Amazon, and if you want to follow with us and look for Thomas Merton, the Chuanza, which is Chuantzu, I think. Is that right? Drew, will you start us out with Stephen Mitchell, translation of the 81st verse, please?
Sure. True words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. Wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The Tao nourishes by not forcing. By not dominating, the master leads.
Thank you, Drew. Brian, you're going to read us Derek Lynn, I believe.
Yeah, sure. True words are not beautiful. Beautiful words are not true. Those who are good do not debate. Those who debate are not good. Those who know are not broad of knowledge. Those who are broad of knowledge do not know. Sages do not accumulate. The more they assist others, the more they possess. The more they give to others, the more they gain. The Tao of heaven benefits and does not harm. The Tao of sages assists and does not contend.
Thank you, Brian. This is Jonathan Starr's translation. Words born of the mind are not true. True words are not born of the mind. Those who have virtue do not look for faults. Those who look for faults have no virtue. Those who come to know it do not rely on learning. Those who rely on learning do not come to know it. The sage sees the world as an expansion of his own self. So what need has he to accumulate things? By giving to others, he gains more and more. By serving others, he receives everything. Heaven gives and all things turn out for the best. The sage lives and all things go as Tao goes. All things move as the wind blows. That is powerful. Man, that's powerful. I think I want to read my interpretation today. I think it's got some stuff to add. Learning to love. Loving words are not always beautiful. Beautiful words are not always loving. Those who love do not need to debate. Those who need to debate have not yet learned how to love. You do not learn to love from a book. You learn to love by loving. The more you love, the more love manifests in your life. You start to experience all the things you only dreamed were possible. I like that one.
I do too.
I like the stanza that says, those who need to debate have not yet learned how to love. You do not learn to love from a book. You learn to love by loving. Nor did I learn to love by asking God to make me, to change me so I could love. That's a dangerous kind of prayer, because what that means is you're going to start rubbing against things. The way I change is by making the choice to live compassionately rather than succumb to my fears. You've got the old saying that when you pray for peace, you get a line to stand in. Same kind of thing. It has to be worked out of me. Those rough edges have to be smoothed out. And it takes friction to smooth out those rough edges. There's no other way that I've experienced.
And depending on how hard we're holding on to them,
Yes,
is how much friction.
that's what Mitchell said, by not dominating, the master leads. That's the same thing, I believe.
Yeah.
Got a couple of comments out of the Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, translated by Red Pine. I mentioned a Zen study group I do on Monday nights. They got a lot of Red Pine translated literature, Buddhist literature. So I'm going to try to slip this Tao Te Ching in on them for a book study.
Mhm.
Maybe they'll fall for it, being it's Red Pine that did it. So we'll see. I'd like to slip this in. This is a good book. What's so great about it is not his translation. It's all the comments that he has from all of the old masters. He'll do his translation. Then he'll have comments from 8 or 10 masters from Lao Tzu's time all the way up to the 1900s, discussing parts of it. These are a few of the comments about the 81st verse. He tells us that though the Tao itself includes no words, by means of words it can be revealed, but only by words that come from the heart. What is true is real, but nothing more. Hence, it isn't beautiful. What is beautiful is pleasing to look at, but nothing more. Hence, it isn't true. Those who focus on goodness don't try to be eloquent, and those who focus on eloquence aren't good. Those who have one thing that links everything together have no need of learning. I'm not mentioning these guys' names because I would butcher them all to hell, so I'm just not going to mention them at all. I'm just going to the comments within that I like. The wise know the Tao, not information. Sages accumulate virtue, not wealth. They give wealth to the poor and use their virtue to teach the unwise. And like the sun and moon, they never stop shining. People only worry that their own existence and abundance are insufficient. They don't realize that helping and giving to others does them no harm but benefits themselves instead. The wealth that comes from giving generously is inexhaustible. The power that arises from not accumulating is boundless. The last line summarizes the entire 5,000 words of the previous 80 verses. It doesn't focus on action or inaction, but simply on action that doesn't involve struggle. Because the way he translates that last line is, the way of the sage is to act without struggling. So we talk about action and non-action. A better description may be action that doesn't involve struggling. No struggle in your action. That's good.
Buddy, there's a comment in here in the Derek Lynn that says, sages speak plainly and truthfully when doing so. This benefits others without harming them.
Hmm.
Plainly and truthfully. That word truthfully stands out to me, that they're not speaking from a place of resentment, not attacking.
It's a place of deeper knowing, isn't it, Brian? It's not the
Mhm.
knowing that we get from intellectual knowing. It's the knowing that comes from within. It's the inner knowing.
That could be that higher power speaking to us.
The higher power.
Higher power.
Drew's in Texas, and I'm in
Yeah, yeah,
higher
yeah,
power. Yeah, I hear that.
yeah, yeah. Buddy understood that. Drew was like, "What the hell did he say?"
Power. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, let's start. I'll just start with let's use a Derek Lynn today and just bounce around because it's got more of a structure, I think. True words are not beautiful. Beautiful words are not true. I've experienced that. That's pretty easy to see. And it's not always the case, but if I'm taken away by the words themselves and not what's behind the words, that's the problem. I've heard it put in my Zen group, what is written between the words, between the letters, like the finger pointing at the moon. Don't fixate on the finger itself. What is it pointing at? What are the words pointing at? Those who are good do not debate. Those who debate are not good. Mitchell said, wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. Now, I've seen that. I don't know when it happened, but at some point I realized there was nothing for me to prove to anyone else about anything. And with that, I dropped the need for people to agree with me with anything from beliefs to politics to anything. I used to think if I had a friend or something that did not agree with me, I had to convince them until they did, no matter what it was we were talking about.
Accepting others as they are means means so much to people around you. They know they can trust you. They know they can be themselves around you. They want to spend more time around you. They'll open up to you.
And that means also not only accepting them as they are, but not feeling the need to change them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the humility of maybe I have something to learn from them.
That's the open-mindedness, Brian. Drew, you're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to offend you, Brian, by calling him Brian. I'm sorry about that.
That's it.
Hey.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, it's letting go of all of that, not only need to figure it out, but that need to correct as if I am right. I am moving toward, I still have opinions, but I'm moving toward, I'm about 80% there that it's really not important that anyone agree with me about anything. I still have a little bit of that there, but it's getting less and less. It's almost like back to that God language business where we each have our own God language. Maybe all these things we think are so important, our opinions, that's a language too. And if I look at my opinions as just my language and someone else have their opinions as theirs, uh, they're just saying a different language than I am. It's just their opinion. That's not something that I need to change or judge or approve or disapprove.
Going back to the eloquence line, true words aren't eloquent, eloquent words aren't true. What that brought to my mind, the real world application of that is for a long time I was a trial lawyer, and I'd come across a bunch of lawyers who it wasn't about conveying the information to the jury in the way that they could understand it. It was using words that made people think that they were so smart and so learned and eloquent. I think that was a great word for Stephen Mitchell to use. They made it so much more about themselves than about actually doing the best job for their client. They wanted people to think they were smart. And I did a lot better against those attorneys than the ones who kept it simple. I think people can see through that pretty easily.
I like Jonathan Starr's take on this too. Words born of the mind are not true. True words are not born of the mind. Those who have virtue do not look for faults. Those who look for faults have no virtue. Those who come to know it do not rely on learning. Those who rely on learning do not come to know it.
I like those last two lines for sobriety for me is, and just mental, emotional health overall is, for years, I just tried to read as much as I could, learn as much as I could, which is fine. I learned some good things about myself and learned some good tools I can use in my life. But there came a point of diminishing returns where I was just moving on from one book to the next book and one podcast to the next podcast and just obsessing about learning more. And when I finally, this is the one book that'll push me over the edge and get me to where I need to go. And I'll put that book in line for after this book because I know that one will really help me.
Got the secret formula, right, Drew?
Huh?
Secret formula.
It's always in the next book. It's always in the next podcast episode. Rather than, okay, I've learned a lot. Now it's kind of time to put it into action. Kind of time to step outside the house and actually do these things that all these people I've been reading say I need to be doing, and they say are good for me, and people for 2,500 years have been saying is good to do. Time to actually start doing it rather than just continuing to be alone and obsess about learning about it.
It's kind of like in recovery, we have to move from the idea that it's just me. We're all talking about our experience. For me, recovery is not self-help. Absolutely not self-help. If all I needed was self-help, there's no way in hell I would darken the door of AA. Forget that. It wasn't like, am I going to renew my country club membership or am I going to join AA? I think I'll join AA. No. I don't know anyone that was the case. That was the last, what do they say? The last door on the block, the last building on the block. Had nowhere else to go. And there's a transition that I had within AA, and it was called surrender, I think was what it was. It was the same thing he's saying here about when we give to others, we gain more and more. When we serve others, we receive everything. That's not self-help. I was taught that I give after I've gained, and I give what I can afford to give. And there's no correlation between giving and receiving. There may be some, but you held on until you had pacified all of your fears and you were saying, I could give a little bit and it'd be okay. That kind of a thing. In the same way, I learned in AA that when I craved alcohol, I had to stop the self-effort and step out of the way by focusing on helping someone else. That's how I step out of the way. Oh, I have work to do, but it's different work. And when I'm consumed with helping others, somehow my problems go away. And that's go ahead, Drew.
Sorry, a question that popped up in my mind is, focusing on obsessing about self-help, obsessing about your efforts to cure yourself. I wondered a little while back, I don't know if you've come across it, but when the pandemic started and all of a sudden there were AA meetings 24 hours a day online, you could just go hop from one to another. I wondered if there were people out there who just spent all day, every day, going from AA meeting to AA meeting. That kind of popped up into my mind with this talk about obsessing about learning and self-effort and all that. I didn't know if you'd run across that or talk to anybody who'd experienced that.
And that goes back to, Drew, and it goes back to, why am I going to the meeting is part of that. Am I going to the meeting? Yeah, they have sayings around here like meeting makers make it. It's not popular I don't even say it here because it wouldn't go across. All meeting makers do is make more meetings. That's what I was taught. That's a huge thing here. Meeting makers make it, blah, 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 blah. And they go, and I don't have, it goes back to the thing we were talking about. I don't have to, air quote, straighten them out. I don't have to express my opinion because it's a little different. If you're having to attempt to correct someone, they're not going to hear you anyway. So I don't think that's my place. My place is to accept. Now, if you're going, to my sponsees, I said, when you go to a meeting, I want you to go around and pray for each of the squares. I want you to open your heart to that. If this was Drew, I picked on Drew a while ago, so I'm going to use him as a good example. I pray for Drew. I open my heart to Drew and sit with that for a minute. I send love to Drew. How can I be of help or service to Drew today? Sit with that. When I'm done, move to the next person. Go to every square that there is. That's a way you can give in an online meeting. And if you have something to share it, not from your notes of the really spiritual things so that you can sound spiritual, but I try to wait to the end of the meeting to share most of the time. And if someone hasn't mentioned what I was going to share, I'll share if there's time. I don't jump out there in front so that, because someone else may say the same thing I was going to say. So why in the world should it be said twice? That's the way I try to humble myself in meetings. It's with everything, Drew. Are we taking that attitude of service, that attitude, some would call it the attitude of gratitude, that we're grateful, and in being grateful, we make room so that we can be of help. We step aside through gratitude as well, because if I'm grateful, that means I am not the direct source. It's about knowing, isn't it? It's like Psalms where it says, be still and know that I am God. Knowing is almost the difference between the different kinds of knowing that we're talking about, or learning and knowing would be something like, if I wanted to get to know Brian, I might Google Brian, look him up on Chat GPT, find his business, read about that, different things, whatever I could find. That's learning about Brian. If I want to know Brian, I need to spend some time with him, buy his lunch, talk with him, whatever the case. I need to spend time with him. That's knowing. And I can know Brian without reading anything about him at all. And I think that's the difference between words born of the mind and words not born of the mind.
Mhm.
That has everything to do with virtue and compassion too, because you're taking time to know someone, not for manipulation or control. That's how I see the difference between those. If I have a comment, just jump in. The sage sees the world as an expression of his own self. So what need has he to accumulate things? In other words, for me, if I see the world if I see me as already possessing the world, what need do I have to store things up? If I always have everything I need at all times, I'm going to do a much better job of giving when there's an opportunity. By serving others, he receives everything. Yeah, I can see that. And it's really back to that idea of giving and receiving are the same thing. I didn't understand. I think I understand it now. How can giving and receiving be the same thing? I'm giving and then I'm receiving. My head would I would get all twisted with it. But then I realized, oh, it's like I've mentioned multiple times. It's like the hand giving to the mouth and the mouth food, and then the hand feels better, gets nourishment. I can see that. It'd be like taking one thing. Okay, I take this pen in my right hand and I give it to my left hand. And then my left hand, I give it. Did I own it the whole time? Yeah, I had it in my hand the whole time. It's that kind of, for me, it's that kind of realization. This last stanza, the Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating, the master leads. Back to those paradoxes again. Every time I try to lead, when I start getting angry, it's when I'm starting to force something. When I get disturbed, guess what? I'm forcing. Even if I don't realize it, that's exactly what's going on.
That phrase just these two lines bring to mind leading by example. show others what to do rather than tell them what to do. One example I've seen of that, in my life lately is I've been making a conscious effort not to buy as much stuff. I've never really had a problem with that. I've realized I have so much. I can't put anything else in these drawers. I can't put anything else in this closet. The shed's all full. I don't even know what's behind some of these things. I need a certain tool, so I go out and buy it, and then I realize I already had two of them, that sort of thing. So I've been focusing on giving stuff away, making bags for donation. And last weekend, I was making some donation bags. And then the next day, I saw another donation bag, and it was one that my wife had started for her stuff. Instead of telling her, hey, you need to clear out some things. You have too many of these things. You keep these things after they're useful, or you never wear these clothes anymore. I never said a word to her about it, and I never told her what my intentions were. I just started making donation bags, and she saw me do it, and she started doing it too. That's one of those leading by example things. If you start doing the right thing, others will see you doing the right thing. And some of them will take your lead and join you on the way.
That's definitely nourishing by not forcing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Correction, not promotion.
It's letting your light shine instead of blinding them with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Heaven gives, and all things turn out for the best. The sage lives, and all things go as Tao goes. All things move as the wind blows. I get tired sometimes of things just showing up when I need them. In other words, the door opens when it's time. 10 doors don't open up all at the same time. If it's not time for me to go outside, guess what? The door is closed. It'd be something wrong if the doors were to stay open all the time in the winter, let's say. That would be crazy. But yet in my life, I want to see every door open in my path into the end of life. I want to see everything. That's not how it works.
Mm.
The door opens when it's time for it to open. So in other words, I don't think I'm ever going to move past this. Am I ever going to learn how to do recovery so I don't have to live in surrender? No, it's surrender is a constant state. If I want a higher power
Mhm.
to, if I want to access power greater than my abilities, ever how that happens, I have to learn to live in surrender, live in that surrendered state. So, are all the doors going to ever open? No, I'm just going to have confidence that the next door will open when it is time. As long as I'm doing everything I can in the moment. And if I ever am concerned about that door opening, I can use gratitude and look back and see how the doors opened in the past. Oh, I know the door's going to open because it's happened before. That's what this last phrase reminded me of in Jonathan Starr. All things move as the wind blows. That's such a good phrase for that. We don't know how where does the wind come? Where does it go? It's just there for a moment. We might know the direction it's coming from, but that's all.
And good luck controlling it.
Yes. All things go as Tao goes. All things move as the wind blows. Can we move as the wind blows? Can we be some of those all things? Or are we going to be stuck and stiff and unwavering? Or can we change as things change? Can we feel the wind enough so that we can move with it? That's awareness, isn't it?
Mhm. And know that things are already okay.
Well, and no, Brian, they were never not okay.
That's it.
Well, we're the children playing in the sandbox, getting so upset
Mm-hmm.
when somebody messes up our little sandcastle.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I'm just playing in the sandbox.
Yeah.
And I take it all so seriously. So seriously. You can see a little bit of this too. Another side of that last phrase from Derek Lynn, he says, sages assist and do not contend. There's no agenda there.
Mm-hmm.
Another phrase from the Tao Te Ching that the sage doesn't compete, so no one competes with her. I had a sponsee the other day he's one that loves drama. So he tried to start some drama with me. I just didn't respond. Yeah, there's some confusion about meeting. And he started getting a little haughty about it. And he texts me some kind of smart ass thing. I said, no, I'm not biting. So I just don't respond. That's part of it. We don't have to participate. When I feel drawn in with anything, I don't have to accept those hooks. It's not necessary. And when I start that, I'm using force.
It's like judo, just get out of the way and let the other person's aggression be their own downfall.
Yeah, and the problem with all of this, Drew, is slowing down so that we can be aware. The awareness, I think, is the most difficult part because if I'm all wrapped up in my head running 100 miles an hour down the highway, I can't see what's on the side of the road. I have to slow down before I can notice anything.
That be still.
It didn't say, it says be still and know,
Be
not,
still.
not, read the Bible through every year and know, or believe and know, or all the other works that we try to add to our life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's not what I'm saying. Just can I be still? If I'm still, I have the possibility of knowing. Another way to
Even just be.
yeah,
Just being.
be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. Be still.
Yeah.
Be. And all of that's drawn us to the moment, Brian. It's all about bringing us back to the moment, no matter what we're talking about. Even The Buddhist vows are all bringing us to the moment. Everything is about being present. It's all about being present. We can't notice the wind unless we're present, can we? If I'm outside and the breeze is blowing and I'm on the phone or my attention's taken away, one of the first awarenesses I lose is the breeze, right? Because for me to notice that, I'm noticing something that does not appear to have consequences for me. Now we're not talking about hurricane. We're just talking about a breeze. That's one of the first things that I dismiss. One of the first things I forget about. But yet this says that all things move as the wind blows, just like the wind blows. So it's so easy for me to not see what's really going on, not to see the breeze in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm all wrapped up in all these other things, I'm not going to see it. But I have to slow down and surrender and be in the moment. And the quickest way for me to get in the moment and slow down to be where my feet are,
Yep.
for me to do something for you, do something compassionate, because I can only do that in the moment. That's why God's love,
Mm-hmm.
action of love, because it's getting us back to the moment.
Keeps me out of self.
I never thought about the breeze there. That's a really good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
What was the Bob Dylan song? You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows.
Oh.
That kind of goes back to this too, because we don't need to read a book to be able to sense the breeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just have to be present.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Just be present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm gonna flesh that out a little more. That's a good one.
Staying where our feet are.
And being still enough to notice
Mm-hmm.
what's going on instead of
Mm-hmm.
bullying my way through whatever's happening.
Mm-hmm. It's a good verse.
That's not far away, Brian, from when the Bible they talk about the Holy Spirit as a wind.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to this wind business. I hadn't thought about this before.
I'm not familiar with that verse,
There's
but
several that talk about
when.
when you think of spirits, like like ghost and how there's always a
Mhm.
breeze with it too. You know, there's always some.
Yeah. Yeah. Wind and water.
Anything else, guys? This has been a good one today. Thank you.
I think I'm good.
Next week we'll start on the Chuanza. Thomas Merton. Looking forward. He's got some great stories in there.
Good.
Great stories. So I think we'll enjoy it.
You're muted, Drew.
You said a link to the Thomas Merton is on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
Make sure. Yes. We have a link in the bookstore. You can just go up to the menu bookstore, The Way of Chuanza, Thomas Merton.
Okay.
It also lists some of the used ones that are available as well, which are my favorite. Guys, that's all I have. Y'all have anything to add?
No? Uh-uh.
A good conversation. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.